All right, let's take a look at this next page. Some questions with circles. First one says, find the equation of a circle if the diameter has endpoints 0, 1, and 2, 3. So we're at the endpoints of the diameter, which are on opposite sides of the circle. I've got a diagram over here on the right. To be able to write the equation of the circle, we need two things. We need to know the center, which is halfway between those two, and we also need to know the radius. So let's see if we can find this center first. That's simply the midpoint of those 2 points that were given. So let's add up the x coordinates and divide by 2, taking the average. And same thing with the y coordinates, divide by 2. Our midpoint is 2 over 2 is 1, 4 over 2 is 2. So 1, 2 is the center of our circle. Likewise, we should be able to find the radius. I'm just going to find the distance between a few of these points here. Let's pick 0, 1, and 1, 2. And we'll say that that is our radius. Difference in our x coordinate squared. We'll say 1 minus 0 squared plus 2 minus 1 squared. Difference in our y coordinates. And we can simplify that. We get 1 plus 1, or root 2, for our radius. So we know the center, we know the radius. Hopefully we can go straight from that. Again, I'm just plugging it into the standard form of a circle. And what we get, x minus 1, quantity squared, plus y minus 2. Quantity squared is equal to root 2 squared, or 2. Make sure you square that radius. And that's the answer for example 2. All right, let's take a look at example 3. It says, find the equation of a circle if it has a center of 2, negative 6, and passes through the point 3, negative 1. So I've got these 2 points plotted here, and just so we're clear here, the circle is looking something like this. So we in fact do know the center. Remember, there's two things we need to be able to write the equation of a circle. We need to know the center, and we need to know the radius. So there's 2 ways you can find the radius. The first one is the one I'm going to show you. This is one most people wouldn't think to do. But you could plug in x, y, h, and k and solve for r. Second thing you could do, most people would take this approach, which is the distance formula. And we would use that to find our radius. So I'm just going to plug in everything I know into the general form, or the standard form of the circle. And so we'll plug in x and h. Looks like 3 minus 2. And y and k. And just to be clear, this is hk over here, and this is our point on the circle, which is our xy coordinate in that formula. So I got 3 minus 2 squared, and we've got negative 1 minus negative 6, or negative 1 plus 6. This gives us 1 squared, or 1, 5 squared, or 25. Or 26 is equal to r squared. Notice I'm not going to take the square root here, because when I plug it back in, I'm just going to rewrite it with r squared. So x minus 2 squared plus y plus 6 squared is equal to 26. That's the equation. You don't need to solve for r necessarily unless they ask for it. All right, this next question is a really good test question. I think it's wound up on the test the last couple years. It says, find the equation of the circle with center 4, negative 2, and tangent to the line x equals 1, include a sketch. And I think the sketch is probably the most important part of this. If you don't draw a sketch, it becomes pretty difficult. I've got the point plotted, which is the center, and then the tangent line there. And just to be clear, this is what we're saying here, is that at x equals 1, that circle has the same slope or is tangent to that line. So we've got to come up with both the equation using the radius and the center here. You can calculate the radius, it's not too difficult. Obviously this distance right here is the radius. You could probably look at the graph and calculate it. So our radius is equal to 3, and you can go straight to the equation, but I think drawing this picture is the hardest part of the problem. So we're going to say x minus 4 quantity squared plus y plus 2 quantity squared is equal to the radius squared. Don't put 3, make sure you square it. It is 9. All right, last one. We're going to complete the square here to change standard form or to go from general form to standard form. So I'm going to group the terms by their variables. So I'm going to say x squared minus 2x, and we're going to leave some room there to complete the square. Same thing with the y's. I've got y squared plus 4y. Leave some room there to complete the square, and I'm going to move that negative 4 to the other side and make it a positive 4. And we're going to complete the square for both of these. Half of the middle term squared, half of negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Whatever I add to one side, make sure I add to the other side as well. And then again, complete the square for the y's. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Whatever I add to one side, I must add to the other. And we'll factor this. This is x minus 1 quantity squared. Y plus 2 quantity squared is equal to 9, and we've generated standard form of a circle. Center here looks like 1, negative 2. That is HK, the center of our circle. And the radius, make sure you square root it. Our radius is equal to 3. Be careful if the x squared and y squared, if they have a coefficient not equal to 1, you have to deal with that a little bit differently. You can either divide both sides by that coefficient, or you can factor it out. But if you factor it out, make sure you factor it out of every single term with the x variable or every single term with the y variable.